Hello and welcome back. My name is Erin Ferguson, and this is my video series about creating the art for a 2D video game. And today's episode is a perfect opportunity to do another Draw With Me session. And I will tell you why, because first of all, I am still working on doing character portraits. I don't know if you've seen, a few videos ago I did Garth here, and I made a video about how to draw different facial expressions. But if you have not seen that video, basically what I am working on right now is doing various portraits with different expressions for each of our characters. So when you talk to them, next to their dialogue box, their portrait will come up and you will get a face, to go with their voice. And anyway, we've got quite a few characters, so I've been working on those for the last several, 2, 3, 4 weeks, something like that, and I still have more to do, so I might as well use this time to draw. But also, and I will tell you the story here in a minute because it's kind of funny, but I got no work done this week, and it's kind of a funny story. And I will tell it to you in a minute. But before we do that, I thought I would show you some of the other portraits that I've done. So here is Garth. He was our first one. I figured we should do him first because I'm pretty sure he's the only character who actually has dialogue at this point, so he should probably should have a portrait. And then we've got Pontus. You guys remember him? He's lives in the big mansion with his wife and daughter. He's so cute, all bald. I love that one. All modesty aside, I really like that one. He's a fun one to do because he's super expressive. He has lots of fun lines and stuff on his face to play with, so I really like doing him. And here's his lovely bride. So here's Charity, and she's a lot of fun too because I imagine her being just very bubbly and ebullient. Yeah, so there's her. And then their daughter, and this one was really fun because she's one of our marriage candidates. So she actually gets an extra expression. So we have all of our basic ones. So we've got neutral, happy, really happy, sad, angry, disgusted, embarrassed, and she's also got a flirty expression. Although I was thinking her mom really should have a flirty expression too, because I think that she's pretty open with her affection with everyone, and so maybe she needs a flirty expression too. And so we've got her done, and we've also got Ted. He runs our tavern. I don't know if you remember him, but he's always pretty cheerful and happy, so even his neutral expression is even his neutral face is happy, and he just gets happier from there. I did big old crocodile tears for his sad face. And of course we have his lovely bride, who's basically his opposite. She's very flinty and kind of sour, and so her neutral expression looks like she just ate a lemon, but she does, get slightly happier. She doesn't really bubble over with joy like some of the other characters do. She has a pretty good angry face though. I wouldn't want to tick her off. Alright, so there's Eliza, and so next up on the drawing board is their daughter, Violet. And Violet, again, is one of our marriage candidates, so she will have a flirty expression. And I am going to be working on her today. So basically the method to my madness here has been to draw out the neutral expression, and that one takes the longest because I've got to color and draw everything from scratch. And then I just copy, paste, and tweak for the rest of the expressions. So let's go ahead and start with the happy one here. Okay, we're all set up here, and I'm going to go ahead and start working on her happy face. And while I do that, I can tell you my story for why I didn't get anything done this week. There's that saying, no good deed goes unpunished. I tell you what, that is so true. So this week, earlier this week, I went outside, early in the morning to water my plants. I was out there with my daughter, and this little dog, little Beagle, comes bounding up to me out of nowhere. And, he's really cute, really friendly, playful. And so anyway, I'm petting him, and where'd you come from, little guy? I was talking to him, and one of my neighbors was outside, so I asked her, is this your dog? Because she was out kind of looking at him, and she's like, oh no, I just saw him scratching at my door, so she'd come out, to see him, and neither of us recognize him. Our street isn't that big, and after a while, you kind of, you feel like you come to sort of recognize most of the people and animals, that live on your street, and neither of us had ever seen him before. And so I figured, well, he must have come, he must have wandered in from somewhere. So I was talking to my neighbor. I said, well, why don't I take him inside and I'll put up an ad for him and see if, somebody's missing him. Because he was wearing a collar. It didn't have a tag on it, but he had this little red collar. And so I figured, he must belong to someone. And we've actually, done that in the past. It's not the first time we found a little stray dog, wandering around. And we take them in, and usually the turnaround time is pretty fast. If somebody's actively looking for their dog, usually, it doesn't take very long for, after you put up an ad, for somebody to get in touch with you and let you know that it's their dog. And so we've had this, happen in the past, but usually, we only end up having the dog for a matter of a few hours at most before somebody comes along and claims them. So after I brought him inside, we figured out pretty quick that this dog had like zero training. It probably would have helped if, we knew his name, but we also figured out that he would respond to anything and nothing. So if you said it in the right tone, it didn't matter what you called him. If you called him Buddy, if you called him Todd, if you called him Douglas, that was my choice. I called him Douglas. He would pretty much respond to anything as long as you used the right tone of voice. But he wouldn't respond to basically any commands whatsoever. And he was barely potty trained. He was potty trained as long as he was outside when, nature called. He would just find the most convenient spot of tile to poop on, so that was fun. I love animals. I'm a dog lover especially, and so I was, very patient with him, but also, I've got kids to clean up after. I don't need something else to scoop up, I don't need to scoop up anything else's poop at this point in my life. So anyway, that bit was less fun. So we've got this dog, and he's also, not only does he not respond to any commands, doesn't come when you call him, doesn't sit when you tell him to sit, doesn't drop it, doesn't leave it, none of that stuff. He's also kind of destructive, so he's, getting into our stuff, chewing up things, jumping on the kids, on our bed, on our couch. And I know a lot of people don't mind dogs on their bed or on their furniture, and for some dogs I wouldn't mind, but he was kind of smelly, so I didn't really want him on my bed. And he wouldn't stay off of the bed. He was obsessed, with getting on there. And wasn't this is so mean. The poor thing was just not the brightest crayon in the box, He just wasn't the brightest little dog. And so he kept getting stuck in places. He would get his head stuck in the back of a chair, and he has that loud, because he's a Beagle, so he has that hound bark, that really loud braying sort of bark. And so he would get his head stuck in the back of the chair, and he would be howling until I, went and I unstuck him, got his head stuck out of the, pulled back out of the chair, or he would go under the bed and get stuck and be howling. You just hear this muffled howl from beneath the bed, so I'd have to go and get him, out from underneath the bed, and it was just, one thing after another. But we figured, well, this is, short term. He's just gonna stay here until we can find, whoever lost him. Well, I'm sure you know where this story is going, but nobody wants to claim this dog. So he has a collar on, so I kept thinking, well, somebody's got to be looking for him. And he was a nice looking dog. It looked like he'd been taken care of, looked like he'd certainly been fed, had something to eat. And he certainly didn't seem like anybody had been, starving him or anything like that. And he was clean. Well, okay, he was smelly, but he didn't have fleas or anything. And he wasn't super dirty. And so I figured, he just probably escaped, and our first thought was, because I found him in the morning, that he probably, escaped while somebody was at work or headed to work and nobody had noticed yet. So we're like, oh, you know what, I bet you this evening, whenever his family, his people come home, they're gonna notice, that he's missing. They just haven't had the chance to notice yet. And of course, the evening rolls around and still we're nothing. We've put up ads on Facebook, on Nextdoor, all of the regular stuff that you do when you find a missing dog, and nothing. We had one of our other neighbors who had seen him earlier that morning. She had seen him about a mile away from us, and so we were kind of tracking him that way, but it was clear that he had made some progress. He's one of those nose to the ground kind of dogs, so my guess is that he had maybe come from a ways away. And so we started getting, some other people. We've got a lady that lives in our neighborhood whose life goal, I think, is basically to reunite pets with their owners. And so she runs a whole bunch of these Facebook and groups and next door groups and whatever, to reunite lost pets with their families, and her knowledge of who owns which pet is extensive. I'm seriously impressed that she recognizes like basically every dog in this town. And so we get her on it, helping us, and she starts, sharing his picture and his information with all of the surrounding neighborhoods in case he walked in, from one of the surrounding areas. And, again, nothing. And so I take him to the vet yesterday, which in and of itself was a total pain. Because he wasn't leash trained, like, at all. And so, he's yanking and he's pulling and he's tugging, and I've got this gnarly bruise on my arm this morning from, whoops, didn't mean to do that. No, I did not. Let's fix that. Anyway, I've got this gnarly bruise on my arm this morning from just having the leash around my arm and him pulling so hard while I was trying to, like, hold my baby, trying to hold my little girl to, like, navigate into the vet's office while he was yanking and tugging and getting all tangled up in my legs. And anyway, so I bring him in and they scan him, for a microchip. And he has one. So it's like, oh, yes, good news. Thank goodness, because he was driving my kids crazy at that point. Oh, my goodness. Like, and it's, in all fairness, like, my son is, like, cannot handle things that are act in unpredictable ways. I think I've mentioned on here before that he has autism, but he's, like, cannot handle anything that acts in, like, an unpredictable way, or that, approaches him suddenly. And so, a young dog is going to do all of those things. It jumps up, he was trying to, nibble and chew on the kids, like little dogs do, and, young dogs do. And so anyway, my son was just not having it, and my daughter wasn't having it either because she hadn't slept in like a little over a day and a half, because every time we'd lay her down to sleep, we would let him out we had him in a crate, for a good part of the time, but when we let him out there to, stretch his legs and whatnot, he would jump up, on the bed or wherever she was and lick her awake, and so she was just like crabby. Whoops, I just dropped my pen. It's fine. Anyway, so I'm getting pretty anxious to get this dog, back to his family, because he's driving my kids crazy and chewing up all their stuff and jumping all over them and getting his smelly dog self all over my furniture. And I know it probably sounds like I don't even like dogs, but I actually really love dogs. I just like ones that are trustworthy and old. Old dogs are my very favorite of dogs. But anyway, back to the story. So they scan him for this microchip, and he has one. But they, look up this chip and find out basically that it was issued by one of our local shelters, but it was never registered. So one of two things happened. Either somebody dropped the ball and never, usually when you adopt a dog from a shelter, they register the chip, right then and there to your name. But it wasn't registered in anybody's name, so either somebody dropped the ball and just never registered this chip when they adopted out the dog, or, according to this lady who was helping me, sort of spread the word, she was saying that she has seen it sometimes where people will basically get on online, delete all of their information, that's on their dog's chip, and then abandon the dog, then just dump the dog, and so it can't be traced back to them. So one of those two things happened, and I'm kind of suspicious that it was the latter. So, we bring this dog back home. We're kind of at a dead end because the chip didn't lead anywhere. I've been advertising everywhere I can think to advertise. I mean, his ad has been shared all over, and he's starting to get into trouble at my house. In fact, he went through the fence. We have a little hole in our fence, and he squeezed right through there and got into the neighbor's yard. And our neighbors are very nice people, but they have a German Shepherd that will attack other dogs. So I'm just having to watch this Beagle morning, noon, and night. He can't be unsupervised for, a minute, because he gets into everything, chews up stuff, or he, ends up where he's not supposed to be. Even when I go outside with him, I can't just let him outside to burn off some energy, because he'll go through the hole in the fence and we don't really have anything substantial enough to block it. And so anyway, I'm just, following this dog around every time he's in the house, and I got like nothing done the last couple of days, and I really mean like nothing. Like my house is falling apart. So it's been a long few days that we've had this house guest. And anyway, so and I even tried to do some drawing while he was here. Just thought, well, I'll just shut him in the office with me, and I'll try and get some drawing done. And he was content, just to be with me in the office for about, 5 minutes. And then I look down, he's just like gnawing on the edge of my bench here that sits in front of, that I've got here in front of the computer. And I was like, okay, yeah, not doing that. Like, I don't want you to chew up my chair. And so then I tried to like kennel him in the office, like where I could see him while I worked. And that he just barked and he barked. And like I said before, he was loud. Like, he didn't have one of those quiet barks. No. Like, he's so loud. I'm impressed that a noise that loud could come out of a dog so small. He was so loud. So that didn't work out either. And basically, that's that's where we were this morning, where I'd gone, days without doing much of anything except watching this dog. And we're kind of getting into, now it's getting to be a problem, because of course when we took him in, I figured, well, this would be a short-term thing. But of course it hasn't been. We've had him for days. And we were running into the problem where we were going to be out of town next week. Which, by the way, I'll have to talk about that in a minute, because I don't know if I'm going to do a video next week, because, like I said, going to be out of town. We're going to be out of town next week, and I couldn't board him because we don't have his vaccination record. I do not like the way I'm doing her eyes. I'm going to go back to the sketch. Anyway, we don't have his vaccination record. I mean, I assume if he came from a shelter that, he'd be more or less up to date on most vaccines, but I don't know, if he's up to date on his doggy, canine influenza or anything like that. And that one, you have to do like the first part, and then you have to do the second part a few weeks. It's 2 or 3 weeks later, something like that, and we don't have that kind of time. And so anyway, I was getting a little anxious because, we've got to leave, and I don't know what to do with this dog while we're gone. And nobody's claiming him, and so I started asking around, if anybody wanted to be a replacement foster for this dog until his family could be found. His family, who I'm convinced are non-existent at this point, who have dumped him. And, no volunteers. And I can't really blame anyone, because a nice looking dog, obviously purebred, I think, but man, he was ill-behaved. He had terrible manners. Oh, so bad. He's stealing food, just like jumping up, stealing it straight out of your hands, knocking the kids over, making a mess, chewing up things. Like, I can't really blame anyone for not just like jumping at the opportunity to foster this dog. So I finally couldn't think of anything else to do this morning, and figured, well, if he came from the animal shelter, maybe they'd take him back. And so I called them, and animal control came and got him this morning. And so Douglas the Regal Beagle, which is what I called him, because he would respond to anything if said in the right tone. Douglas the Regal Beagle has gone, and I'm just really hoping, because I really didn't want to do that. That wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to find his family and reunite him. But he has gone back to the pound, back to the shelter, and I'm really hoping that someone adopts him before he's like euthanized. I'm hoping, I think he's got a fairly good chance, because, like I said, he's very young. When I took him to the vet's office, they thought he's about 1 year old. They didn't think he would probably be much older than that, which is about what I was guessing. And besides that, he's a purebred beagle. That's pretty nice. And I think with training, he could be a perfect family dog. Anyway, that's the story of why I didn't get anything done this week whatsoever. Also, like I mentioned, next week I'm going to be out of town, so I don't think I'm going to be doing a lot of drawing, probably like none. I always bring my sketchbook on vacation with great, I always have great intentions of drawing when I'm on vacation. I might do some drawing. Maybe I'll do some drawing in my sketchbook. Of course, I've said that before, and I almost never do any drawing whatsoever. I still do not like these eyelids. I feel like her eyes need to be more shut for this pose. But anyway, I don't know if I'm going to do a video next week. I mean, I've got over 50 videos consecutively, so I've done pretty well. So I think if I take a week off, it's not the worst thing in the world. But, you know, I don't want to break my streak. You know, it's funny, I've been learning, speaking of streaks, I downloaded Duolingo because down here in the South, a lot of people speak Spanish, and I speak like none. And I mean, my last Spanish class, I think I was maybe in like 6th grade. I mean, it's been a long time. And a lot of people speak Spanish down here in the South because it's the South. And I'm starting to feel like really uneducated because so many people speak it and I don't like it all. So I figured, you know, I'd heard about Duolingo, just like the language learning app, and it's free. I'm like, you know what, I should download this and give it a try. You know, what have I got to lose? You know, I can try and learn some Spanish, so at least I could have a, you know, basic conversation with somebody. And anyway, so I downloaded this, and they keep track of how many days, you know, in a row that you practice. And I tell you what, if that isn't the most motivating thing, because I like to see my streak, you know, my streak getting bigger. And it was so sad, I was up to like a 56-day streak and of practicing, you know, every day. And there was a day, I think it was a Saturday or something, that we'd just been busy all day and I hadn't gotten around to practicing. And my husband was playing on my phone, and so it was, you know, late in the evening, and I said, when you're done on that, bring it to me so I can, you know, practice my Spanish. He says, okay, yeah, I'll be done here in just a second. So I was laying down in bed trying to get our daughter to sleep, and of course, you know, I fell asleep. So I fell asleep and woke up, and it was like just past midnight, and I hadn't practiced Spanish, and so I messed up my 56-day streak. And when I logged on to Duolingo, the little Duolingo owl was like shaking his head so sad at me, and it made me feel so bad. He was like shaming me. The Duolingo owl was shaming me. And of course they try and get you to buy, you know, the full version, or the ad-free. I mean, it is a full version, but the ad-free version. Like, you can repair your streak if you buy the ad-free version. And it's like, if it was a one-time fee, I probably would have bought it by now, honestly, because, you know, in the ad-free version, you have unlimited health, you know, because it's like they're teaching a second language through like gamification. So whereas in my version, like the free version, you have a certain amount of life, you know, that you have, and every time you get a question wrong, you know, you lose a certain amount of health, which I actually find very motivating because it makes you think, you know, a little bit more about each question before you answer. Because once you run out of life, you've either got to wait for it to refill, or you've got to do some practice sessions like to refill it. So anyway, if it was like a one-time fee just to buy the full version, I probably would, but it's like a monthly fee, so, and it's kind of like a lot. I don't remember how much, but I remember thinking it was kind of a lot. Well, I mean, to learn a second language, it's probably not that much, but if you're a cheapskate like me, like yours truly, I just as soon have the free version. I'm also thinking I might throw her hands into this pose. I like, for some of the more extreme, you know, expressions, to bring their hands up. So I think it just makes it slightly more dynamic. I don't do it with all the characters, and I don't do it with all their expressions. It just kind of depends on what kind of a person I feel like they are, whether I feel like they're a more expressive character, or whether they're a little more low-key. You'll get to watch me struggle with hands. I'm not terrible at them, but I almost never get them right on the first try, or the second or third. I always like my sketched hands much better than when I actually ink them. Probably because they have like better motion and gesture. So I'll probably like the sketch, and then as soon as I ink it, I'll be like, meh. But we'll see. Kind of like that. Just the single hand. I guess we could do double, or suggest there's another one there. Let's try the single, and then see if we need two hands up there or not. Maybe if I need to do another tutorial or two, maybe I should do one on doing hands. I'm not like I said, not fantastic at hands, but I do know a few tricks that make them a little bit easier. Like grouping fingers, which is exactly what I'm doing here. There we go. That has a nice feel to it. I like that gesture there. But I think I am going to at least suggest the other hand. I'm going to put it on another layer in case I don't like it. Just going to carve the shadows out a little bit more on this hand so we get a little bit more finger definition, since I didn't actually draw lines between the fingers. I like to group fingers. I'll probably, if I do that tutorial video, which now I really should since I've mentioned it, but I find with hands, if you don't want them to look too stiff, leaving lines out is a really good way to keep them looking more fluid and loose. There we go. I like that better. I think that looks pretty good. All right. Once again, we're starting with our neutral expression and then just tweaking it from there. Once I got this rhythm going, they go pretty fast, actually. So it's not that these expressions take that long. It's just that I have, well, a lot of them to do, and I was taking care of a stray dog all week who could not be, who could not leave, like, unmonitored, unattended. He was busy dog. I'm sure will make somebody very, very happy, but he made me very, very tired. I love drawing eyelashes. It's hard for me not to go totally overboard and make them all look like they're wearing, like, spiders on their eyes. But I really like drawing eyelashes. There, she looks pretty sad. I'd say that's a good mopey face. You know, the other thing I did this week that I highly recommend everybody else should do is we finished watching the new Dark Crystal series on Netflix. And that was funny because, like, I love Jim Henson, just like I love the Muppets, and I just love the I have a thing for like stop motion and like puppets, and obviously Muppets aren't stop motion, but it's kind of the same basic principle, you know, the idea that there is something like tangible, you know, tangible, homemade that you build, as opposed to like computer animation or hand-drawn animation where everything is 2D. With like puppets or stop motion, I mean that thing, those puppets, they actually exist, and something about that, the sets and just, I don't know, something about it has just always really fascinated me. So when they came out with the new Dark Crystal prequel series, you know, on Netflix, well, first of all, I had never seen the original Dark Crystal movie. I just always heard, you know, that it was a cult classic. You either liked it or you didn't. And some people thought it was a little strange. And so my husband and I thought, well, you know, in order to get ready for the new series, because it was doing really well, it had been reviewed really well, we should watch the original movie and get some context. And we watched it, and I didn't love it. No, don't get me wrong. Like I said, the puppets are incredible. There are no words. They are absolutely incredible. And the sets, and I really appreciate like the artistry. But I also feel like, and some of this comes from my knowledge having read like Jim Henson's biography, I think what he wanted to, he wasn't able to do what he was aiming for with that movie. I think his vision for that movie exceeded what they were actually able to execute. And I think it showed a little bit. I don't think when the movie came out, I don't think it did particularly well. And I think part of the problem, this is just from my perspective, I think part of the problem is, you know, with the puppets themselves, this is a high fantasy, like action adventure story, but they're puppets, and and they don't weigh very much, and it just feels like the puppets had this feeling of like weightlessness. And so even during these action scenes and stuff, it just felt like, I mean, everything felt kind of weightless, like this walking on the moon sort of effect, and it just kind of took away from the suspense. And also, I think that they tried to do a lot of world building, that they weren't able to do that much world building in one, you know, whatever it was, an hour and a half movie. I think that it would have been better as a series. And also, there was just, the plot moved a little slow in places. There was just, you know, I was just like kind of about it. Like, I didn't quite understand. Now, granted, like, It was a little before my time, so I think if you had like been, I think it's an 80s movie. I think if you had been born then, you'd probably have more nostalgia for it, but I didn't love it. Like, I thought it was cool, like, glad I watched it, but didn't love it, probably didn't need to see it again. But, you know, in spite of that, we decided to watch the new series, because why not? Also because I love puppets and stuff, so we decided to watch the new series. Despite that glowing, you know, review that I just gave the original movie. And it is so cool. Like, it is so cool. Because now, you know, first of all, technology helps a bit. Obviously, all the characters are still puppets, and the sets, you know, they're still all, you know, everything's still very handmade, which just blows my mind. I think they do use, you know, CGI in certain places to sort of enhance the action a bit. There still are a couple of sequences where there's like sword fights or whatever, and the puppets they're holding their little swords, and like my husband pointed out, he's like, it kind of looks like they're just like holding their like wands or something, because again, you're dealing with sort of this weightlessness sort of issue, but they've overcome a lot of that to the point that it doesn't, like, I don't think, take you out of the story so much. And of course, since it's like a full series, there's like 10 episodes, and each episode is, I think, about an hour. They have a lot more time to really build up the world and the characters and stuff, and it is so cool. And I'm like an enormous fan now, which is really funny considering that I didn't love the original movie, but the new series is so awesome. I have a feeling that it's probably closer to what Jim Henson intended for his original movie, probably closer to what he wanted than his movie was. I mean, I could be off base on that, but I think that this is probably closer to what he envisioned, and so I highly recommend. So if you like, you know, artsy fantasy adventure, like, go for it. You should definitely watch it, and you have Netflix. That is also a requirement, but it is super cool to watch. For the sad face, I like to create a clipping mask, and then just to do like a bit of a like bluish sort of cast on the face. I think it just sort of gives them kind of a more gloomy expression. Let's see. I also do usually on the disgusted face, I always also usually do a bit of a green cast too, because it just makes it kind of, you know, your skin almost turns green when you're absolutely revolted by something, or you're feeling nauseous. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, I think I feel pretty good about that. I think I have time to do one more, and then I need to get this footage all edited and compiled if I want to get this up today. Honestly, it's not even the editing that takes that long, it's the exporting. Like, I don't do a ton of editing because I'm lazy, and no, that's really the only reason. I don't do a ton of editing because I'm lazy. And, but it's the exporting, especially on some of these longer videos that take sometimes hours. It seems to, it varies a bit depending on how many clips and stuff make up the movie, I think. But anyway, sometimes the exporting takes so long that even if I get the video done early in the day, it takes so long for it to export as like an MP4 that I don't get it uploaded until late. The angry face is one of my favorite ones to do because it's a more extreme, you know, end of the emotional spectrum. So it's fun to illustrate. I usually do like a nice flared nostril there, bit of a snarl, make the pupils smaller, obviously mess with the eyebrows. I usually draw the bottom of the eye down a little bit too, because I figure if the mouth is drawn down, it's going to pull the eyelid down a bit, and I think it gives it just a bit of a more crazed expression. And I've been designing some of these characters that actually have parents, like in the game. I usually try and make them actually, you know, look like their parents, like that plausibly that they could actually be related, you know, to these other two people. I think it's funny if you've ever watched, well, any movie really, but watch like the animated Aladdin. Like, how did Jasmine's father produce Jasmine? I mean, honestly, like, he's this dumpy, gray little bearded man, and his daughter is a babe. And I've always said that somebody really should do a paternity test on Jasmine, because I am not convinced that he had anything to do with her. I think, I don't know, either that or her mom just was like gorgeous enough to sort of make up for his lack, but I'm just not convinced. I'm not convinced that he had anything whatsoever to do with, I don't think he's biologically connected to her in any way, shape, or form. But anyway, all that is to say, like, I usually try and take features, you know, from both parents to sort of design their child, especially with a lot of these like marriage candidates that they're younger adults, and so their parents are, you know, still around and they're in game. Anyway, so with her, with Violet, her mom and dad, you know, are both there, and they're in the they both run the tavern. And so I was trying to figure out, you know, what features she would get from each of them. And I thought about giving her bushy, curly eyebrows like her dad, but I just couldn't do it. It's like, nope, can't do that to you. Like, his eyebrows are really intense. Here, see for yourself in case you don't remember. Yeah, there's Ted. I decided that she would get his curly hair, but not his curly eyebrows. I did her a favor. She got more of her, she got her parents, she got both of their coloring, as far as like, she got her mom's hair color, but both parents, she kind of got their same skin tone, which makes sense. She got her mom's hair color, her dad's curls. Her nose is more similar to her mom's, it's a little more rounded like her dad's, but her mom's got like a pointy witch nose because she's a little bit of a, well, she's kind of like evil, so it made sense, I thought, to give her kind of a pointy, harsh-looking nose. So her daughter did not get that, because I imagined her daughter being quite sweet. So she didn't get that particular feature. But she did get more of her mom's face shape, too. It's a little more long and angular. She's got a longer chin, not quite as long as her mom's. Her mom's got, like, really long chin. I think her dad's, because her dad's more made of like round, soft shapes. Her dad's features sort of help to smooth hers out a bit. They balance each other very well, we'll put it that way. Her mom and dad, their features balance each other out. So their daughter is reasonably attractive, I think. Which I think is important if you're making a bunch of marriage candidates for players, that you don't have too many ugly ducklings in the bunch. They all gotta have a fighting chance. Okay, that looks pretty good. I mean, she definitely looks like she wants to punch, like, somebody in the throat. But I think maybe I'll try and make her pupils here smaller. I feel like they're not in the right spot. I feel like they're not looking in the same spot. Hold on. Stand by. Like that? How does that look? That looks better to me. Usually when I can't tell, I have my husband come and look at it and tell me if she looks like she's looking, if her eyeballs are looking in different directions. For the angry face, I like to put a lot of red into the skin, especially here in the center of the face, because that's where all the tension is. There we go. She definitely looks mad. Okay, so I'm still not completely 100% positive that her eyes are looking in the same spot. Gosh, why is it so hard to tell? She does look, it looks a little wonky. I think I may have to go in and adjust that, but I'm gonna give it a passing grade for now, because I need to go and get this footage edited. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. We did some pretty good work. We've got our neutral expression, our happy, our very happy, our sad, and our angry all pretty much done. So thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said before, usually have new videos every Friday, but not sure I'll have one next Friday because I'll be gone pretty much all next week, but maybe I'll upload like a bonus video or something for fun. But anyway, I will be seeing you, if not next Friday, then the one after. So until then, enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you later.